Icelandic is the mother tongue of about 300,000 Icelanders. 20 more thousands of Icelanders have Icelandic as a second language. Icelandic is a part of the northern branch of the Germanic languages. It is closest to Faroese and some dialect of northern Norway. There is a program in Icelandic as a second language at the University of Iceland, and then there is about 40 universities, mainly in Northern Europe, who offer Icelandic as a foreign language.
I'd always had this interest in Iceland, and since beginning the program I've come to appreciate the country for, obviously for its nature, for its language, and for its unique place in European history.
The reason I'm here to study Icelandic is that I'm studying languages back in Denmark. I'm studying Danish, so it just makes good sense for me to study a bit of Icelandic, as we share some of the same structures as most of the Scandinavian languages.
The Árni Magnússon Institute for Icelandic Studies International Office organizes summer courses in Icelandic language and Icelandic studies in collaboration with the University of Iceland, Faculty of Humanities, the University of Minnesota, and the Nordic Council of Ministers. The courses are primarily intended for university students of language and literature.
I first became interested in Icelandic after I finished my master's degree in medieval Indian literature, and I'm really interested in coming to the university here to study medieval Icelandic literature, looking at some of the myths and stories about character and place. And so when I was looking on the website for programs to take here, I saw this summer course in learning Icelandic, and I thought, well, if I'm going to read the text and live there for a year or two, I should probably know a bit of the language.
We have also a program in Icelandic Online, and there is about 100,000 participants in Icelandic Online. Icelandic Online is a prerequisite for the summer courses at the University of Iceland.
My route to learning Icelandic, I think, was perhaps unusual. I think I was playing with Google Translate, and I put my surname I translated it from many languages into English, and I found out that my surname in Icelandic, according to Google Translate, meant record the spirit. So I started to get a bit curious about the Icelandic language from there, and I discovered the TV series Næturvaktin, which completely fascinated me.
I started learning Icelandic first because I was curious about this language. It was quite exotic for me. I always was interested in learning different languages, so I work with Greek language also, and I started learning Icelandic in the year 2005, mainly for reading the Old Norse sagas. But I wanted also to learn modern Icelandic, and I have been reading Icelandic since then, but never really had the opportunity to practice Icelandic.
There are 2 excursions to places of historical and geographical interest, as well as guided tours to the National Museum, Cultural House, National Gallery, and the Parliament Alþingi.
We're having classes with politicians, with geophysicists, with historians, literary researchers. So that has been a really enriching experience.
And I discovered Icelandic by accident, actually. I was in the bookstore in their world mythology section, and I found this huge book that was just a collection of Icelandic sagas in translation. And so I bought it and brought it home, and the prose was so simple and straightforward and beautiful and had a power to it that I had to read more. So I read saga after saga, I read the Eddas, I read both the prose and the poetic Eddas, and then I thought, what does this sound like in Icelandic? Because I had only read them in English. So I found them in translation, or not in translation, in Icelandic, and I didn't know how to say anything. So I found an oral version on the internet, and I fell in love. It was beautiful. The language was so musical and rhythmic. I loved the poetry, especially the rímur, and I thought I have to learn this language. And so I found this course online and sent in an application the very last night that the application was open. And I got accepted, and I love it here.
About 100 students participate in these courses each year. Broad variety of students attend these courses at different academic background, specializing, for example, in Nordic studies, language and literature, linguistics, music, history, arts, and anthropology.
Speaking of the language, it's just such an important part of the history of Iceland, in that the sagas were written in Icelandic, which form, such a vast amount of literary history, and as well as the oral tradition that was passed down through many centuries.
Jeg valgte at tage på nordkurs i år, fordi jeg synes, det var rigtig spændende at komme til Island og også lære islandsk. Det er egentlig det eneste sådan, sprogkurser, der er på nordkurs. De andre de er primært litteratur. Og jeg læser selv sprog derhjemme. Jeg læser dansk og er meget sproginteresseret, så det gav bedst mening for mig at tage til Island. Og så synes jeg, det er helt vildt spændende at lære islandsk.
Today there's a great interest in studying Icelandic around the world, especially in Northern Europe and North America. Every year we receive more applications for the summer programs. The students get instruction in language and cultural competence. The aim of the language teaching is that the students can make themselves understandable in Icelandic and can understand basic text and conversation. They will have lectures about modern Icelandic society and culture.
It's been amazing. It's been such an amazing program and an incredible opportunity to spend a month in Iceland learning Icelandic. To be immersed in a language, I think, is a much better way of learning. And every Icelander I've met has been really great about speaking Icelandic to me and helping me get a better accent and learn Icelandic better. And it's been a really fun course. The teachers have been incredibly supportive and really kind. The material that we're learning is really interesting, and it's taught really well. And the extra material that we're getting, all the visits to places around Reykjavik, the day trips out to the country, has all been a really wonderful way to spend a month learning a language.
And by chance I came across the Árni Magnússon Institute application, and I very happy to have been accepted on the program and to have met really fascinating people. I think I was expecting it to perhaps just be mostly linguists, but there's been a real variety of individuals, people examining political transparency in Iceland, people that work for the Foreign Office, classicists, poets, translators.
Language instruction is mainly in Icelandic. The courses will be finished with a final test and gives university credits.
I think the program has been really interesting. I like the fact that we get to use the language a lot, like in interaction with other people, communication, not just in the classroom.
I knew very little Icelandic before I came, and the first 2 weeks of this program, I understood absolutely nothing. But then about week 3, something clicked, and suddenly I could hear the individual words in the sentences people were speaking. I could hear the music. I could hear the ebb and the flow of the sounds, and it's beautiful. And I love it, and I want to continue so that I can also make that music, because I think it's a glorious and wonderful and awe-inspiring language that has such a history and a weight behind it, and I want to be a part of that.
Íslenska, eins og ég vitið, ekki erfitt mál, þetta er bara öðruvísi.